Alright, so I'm getting ready for some shows, and I wanted to put together some dowsing rod sets to possibly sell at the shows. They make great party favors, by the way, because everyone's fascinated by dowsing rods. So if you have a macabre sense of humor and friends with like interests, you could always make a pair for them and try them out at a party if you'd like. I love them in the field when I'm doing my paranormal investigating. It gives me a little feel of what the energy is like in an area. I don't use them all the way through the night, but I will whip them out when nothing seems to be happening and kind of get a feel of where the energy in a building is. All right, so when I'm starting to make a set of dowsing rods, and by the way, the other videos that I've seen online have used two metal hangers rather, but I have found that there's more than enough material in one metal hanger, and I don't have a whole lot of metal hangers anymore. So I've been trying to conserve my metal output by devising a way to do it with one metal hanger. So I make a mark about the middle at the bottom of the hanger, and then I'm going to take my cutter here and make a cut. Okay, and then I'm just going to try to separate the two pieces of metal. Sometimes if I straighten them out a little bit, I find it's a little easier to navigate. Oh, this one's going to be easy, I think. Oh, that one is easy. Super. Now this area here is too much for a handle. You don't want that much handle. You want about 5 or 6 inches for a handle. So I'm going to take that metal and straighten it out. As much as possible. Try not to do too much damage, manipulate the metal too much, because it ends up dinging up the metal and then it doesn't look so great anymore. But you want to start with one straight piece, basically, or as straight as possible. Okay, so that's pretty straight. Now I'm going to do it with the other one. And then, if you want to get them straighter, my husband taught me this little trick. I'm going to take my gizmo. It's a good way to get your hands dirty. Alrighty. And anywhere you have a little kink, you can just take a hammer and a flat metal surface, and you can pound a lot of them out. Again, I'm trying not to overwork the metal so that it doesn't get too dinged up. So I straighten them out with a couple of pliers to begin with, and then try to do the final work. Oh, that one turned out nicely. Oh yeah, with the hammer. Okay, and then you want about a handle about 5 or 6 inches. So if you use these as an example, because you're going to bend that little tip at the bottom, so you have to account for that as well. So I've been making them all afternoon, so I've got a bunch here. So I'm going to use that as a pattern. But again, it's 5 or 6 inches. You don't want a 90-degree bend. You want it a little curved, but you don't want too much of a curve either. So I'm going to use my this one as kind of a model. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two ends, bunch them up together. And you can do this on paper too. I did that as my first one. I made kind of a pattern. So you start by marking the area where the bend starts, and then marking approximately the area where the bend is going to end. Okay? And then I'll take the other piece and mark. You see marks on it so that as much as possible they're match set. Okay. And now I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to snug it up to the line on the 1, snug it up to the line on the 2. I'm going to add about equal pressure to both of them as I slowly try to start to make my curve. This one obviously is going to have to come down a little bit more. That's a nice curve. Okay, and then I tend to get a little better every time. It is a learning process, so you might start with a few hangers the first time. Okay, equal pressure to both. I'm going to just start to bend them. Okay, there we go. Now they should be relatively uniform, and they are. Now, a lot of dowsing rods are really long, but I find that the longer the dowsing rod is, the more of a the more it gets in the way on investigation. So you might want to keep your dowsing rods fairly short. It doesn't matter one way or another, it's personal preference. But as I say, I found the longer ones tend to get in the way, and they're poking you in the leg all night and that type of thing. So I'm just going to kind of take a look. Obviously you want the foot of the dowsing rod longer than the handle. Pick a nice spot and trim her up. Okay. And that's trash. And then of course, because I want them to be a match set, I'm going to put them together again. Okay. And mark where the other one's going to end. The other one's going to need a little straightening at the end. That's about it. Okay. And I'm going to cut that one. Right at the mark. There we go. Okay. There we are. Okay, so obviously they're going to need some straightening, but there you have it. There's a nice pair of shorter dowsing rods. The next step, of course, is to make the handles. So that's what I'm doing here. You can buy these at the hardware store. It's a brass tube, basically. 7 32 by 0.014. They fit nicely. Over the diameter of the hanger. The only problem is you gotta cut them. So you see I've been working at this one. I've got one more piece to cut off of this one, and I'm just going to take a hacksaw. It's a combination. It's best for a combination of small strokes and big strokes. Of course, every time the saw jumps, it dings up your brass. So if I start with a bunch of small strokes, once I've got a groove, and don't do this at your dining room table. The nice thing about brass is it's one of the softer materials, softer metals, and it's the preferable metal for dowsing rods. So even if my hanger dowsing rods aren't 100% brass, at least the handles will be. And I've dinged up my metal a little bit, but there it is. So there is one handle. Now these sharp edges are not good because they're going to, wherever they hit on the swinging arm of the dowsing rod, they're going to catch. So the next step is going to be is going to be taking out those sharp edges. But, and as I say, if I was a better cutter, I'm sure they'd be better quality cuts, but look at how nice those fit over our handles, right? And those things just slide nicely in there. So, okay. So the last step is to file those rough edges down. I'm just taking a file. Now, when I put it over the top of that, it should flow very smoothly, which is what you want. You want very smooth, fluid movement of the rods. Now, if I'm done with it, I just tweak this end with the pliers, and I've got a dowsing rod. And of course, if you're looking for just quick functionality, as I said earlier in the video, you can just simply take a straw, cut it about 5 inches, place it over your handle. It does the same thing as the brass handles do, for no money at all. Personally, I like my brass handles better. These are a little bit gushy, but if you need it quick, this will work as well. And look, no hang-ups. She's spinning freely. No hang-ups.